Good morning everyone and welcome to this final calendar year Education, Children and Families Policy Committee. Thank you for attending and welcome to everyone that are here. The meeting today is open to the public and there are no items that contain exempt information. The meeting will be webcast and the recording will also be available for people to view later through the Council's website. It could be possible that Sheffield Live will record and broadcast this meeting, but there is no one here today. We have received no public questions or statements, and please can I request that all mobile telephones and other such equipment are switched to silent mode as not to disturb the conduct of the meeting. There is no fire test planned for today, so if the fire alarm does go off, it will be an emergency evacuation and please take instructions from Town Hall staff. The meeting place is in Tudor Square. Can I ask each of the Education, Children and Families Policy Committees to in turn introduce themselves, and I'll go this way. And before we do start, when officers do come up to speak, if you could please find your name card and pop it on the front of the desk. Thank you. And we'll go this way. Thank you.
Councillor Ali Hussain, member of the committee.
Okay. Councillor Rob Bannister, Grace Park Ward.
Councillor Nika, Netherlands Shire Ward.
Mohammed Maroof, Graves Park Ward and Lib Dem spokesperson for this committee.
Councillor Anne Whittaker, Councillor for West Ecclesfield Ward.
Councillor Rebecca Atkinson for Durham Totley Ward.
Councillor Toby Mallinson, Hillsborough Ward and Green Party Deputy Chair.
Councillor Malaka Hebe, Bromhill, Sharrow Vale Ward.
Thank you. I'm Councillor Dondale, Chair of the committee. Do we have any apologies from any officers today? We've got a full house of members. Any apologies? No apologies. Thank you very much. Any declarations of interest on any items on the agenda, please? No declarations of interest. Item number 4 on the agenda is on page 11 and that is the minutes of the previous meeting. Can I ask members to approve as a correct record the minutes from the meeting held on the 5th of November? Any matters arising? No, we're approved. It's formally approved. Thank you. As I've said before, we don't have any public questions or petitions. And item number 6, we have no members' questions being submitted. On to item number 7, which is the work programme on page 21, and I'll hand over to Rachel. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Good morning, everybody. As Chair has said, the work programme starts on page 21. On page, just looking where the recommendations are, over leave. So page 22, there are a set of recommendations which we'll be asking the committee to agree today. The work programme is laid out after and is up for your discussion for any amendments that you may wish to raise, for any suggestions that you've got on that today. I'd just like to draw people's attention to the January layout, and there is a performance framework item there. So since this agenda has been published, it's been decided to move that item from the January meeting and that will be popped into the February meeting. So that will be reflected in the next publication of the agenda. So I will pass back to you, Chair, now to leave this item open for discussion with the committee. Thank you.
Thank you, Rachel. Any questions on the work programme? Councillor Mallinson.
Thank you, Chair. If councillors could look at page 29, which has which is the back of the work programme. It's just about the items that are being deferred or handed over to the adults committee. It says, I think we've been told it's cross-committee working. I'd like to have clarity on how that's going to work. As it stands, it looks like the adult committee will be dealing with it and we won't, but I think it's really important that in terms of transitions and the all-age autism strategy, we actually do have an input into that. And so there needs to be some form of cross-committee working set up. So could we have some comment on that? Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Mallinson. Meredith?
So thank you for the question, Councillor Mallinson. I absolutely agree, and I am working with Alexis Chappell to make sure that it is a joint approach. I think it was recognised that sometimes the all-age strategies didn't have that focus on children in the way that we wanted them to, and obviously transitions is absolutely important for us in preparing for adulthood. I know that Kelly's having conversations with her counterpart within adults as well, but we'll make sure that those are brought back, and the timings means that either there is a joint conversation, or that we're making sure that, I think, or that there is a joint conversation and it comes to this committee as well as going to adult committee, although adult committee will make the decisions.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Do you want to come back?
Rather than come back on that, I have got a second question, Chair, unless one else wants to come back on that. The second question is something that I have raised with colleagues a couple of times. It's in regard to the question that was brought by the National Education Union and other unions last time in relation to the academisation or the trickle of academisations of remaining maintained schools in Sheffield. I think it would be really useful for the committee to have a regular report on the work programme on academisations, with the data on who's academising where and even who's going from one academy trust to another, so that the committee is fully appraised of who's employing the staff in schools and educating our children at all times.
So Councillor Mallinson, if it's okay, I'll include that in my DCS update report so that it's shared with all committee members, and it can be updated each time it comes to committee.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any more questions on the work programme? I just want to add around preparation for adulthood. I do co-chair the preparation for adulthood board as well, which sits under the children and young people's delivery group, which is feeding into that transitions work which is happening over in adults. It's just not really clear, I don't think so. We need to make that clearer about that, how that's happening. Thank you for that, Councillor Mallinson. Okay, so agenda item number 8. Is everyone all right with let me move on from that? Yep, okay. Is on page 31. This is the Children and Families Annual Reports, and it will be presented by Amanda Brown and Becky Towell. There are 4 reports in this item. There's the Annual Fostering Report, the One Adoption South Yorkshire Report, the LADO Service Report and the IRO Service Report. And I'm sure that you've all had a look at these. So if you've got, we'll get officers to present. Thank you.
Hello, Amanda Boughton-Brown. I'm going to present the LADO report and the IRO report. So for the LADO report, obviously you've had the documents. I'm not going to take you through it all, so I'm just going to cite you on what some of the main areas are. So some of the main areas are that from all the schools across the area, and these are some of the things that we need to be cited on. Of all the things, all the schools in Sheffield, there's only half of them that are referring to LADO. So we would expect most schools would refer into LADO. So that's the work that we need to do going forward. Primary reason still remains physical. Is the primary reason that people refer, although inappropriate behaviour is on the increase.
Sorry, Amanda, just for people who don't know what you mean by that, because not everyone knows what LADO is.
Okay.
Can you just give a little bit of an overview when you mean inappropriate behaviour? That's not of children, is it? Can you just give a little bit of a background?
LADO means it's local area designated office. I think there is an explanation within the report. It explains it, what it means and all the different tiers. So an employer has to refer, if there is an allegation of inappropriate behaviour towards a child, or it might be something that is outside of work that could actually affect somebody who works with children, then the employer has an obligation to refer them into our ladder, and whether that's a contact, whether they just have a conversation and it might go nowhere, or whether it goes to tier 1, 2 or 3. That's basically what that means. The ones that we don't get many referrals from at the minute tends to be the police, and we have been doing some work with the police because it has been identified, and it's very clear nationally that for police, the referrals, whilst they do go through their procedures, just like every other employer will go through procedures, it still should be reported, and I think it hasn't been historically, so we are doing some work on that. With all contacts received, so all the contacts that we receive, out of all of them, 13% of them are actually substantiated, and then they move on. Approximately 33% of all referrals meet the threshold for LADO. So contact, 13% of them contacts, and then 33% of them move into the different thresholds. For tier 3 cases, which is the higher tier, they're distributed right across if you look at timescales really. So under 33% of them are closed down under 6 months, but some of them can be 6 to 12 months, and 33% of them are over 12 months, and they tend to be prolonged cases because often there's a police investigation that's ongoing that can take a year plus. Yeah. We always monitor the ethnicities. Some of the stuff that we do monitor is quite difficult to get on a national or a regional level because not everywhere monitors the data in the same way. So going forward, some of the work that we are looking at is around more work with schools. More work with those schools that we're not getting referrals from, to continue our work with the faith sector that we've been doing. So we've been out, we do training within the faith sector regarding LADO referrals. So moving forward, we want to continue to do some of that work and obviously continue our work with the police.
Thank you, Madam. Any questions or comments on the LADO report? Anne, and then Councillor Lewis.
You're talking about half the schools in the city don't refer, which kind of implied as if they should, and they're not doing so. So what would be their reasons for not referring? What, is it kind of they wanting to keep it to themselves, wanting to keep it to the school? How does that work?
I think I don't think it's that. I think sometimes it's about not understanding the process. Yeah, I think it has improved, and I think that's what we need to be clear of. And then you might have some schools that refer a lot, so I think it's about building them relationships up and going out and doing that work. I don't think it's that people don't necessarily want to refer. I don't think it is about that. I think it's more about educating and understanding what the process is. That's what I would say.
So presumably, as you say, you are going to visit all schools and work through that process with them to get them more on board with it.
So we've got education advisors, and we work with the education advisors so that we're doing, so the service manager in LADO will go out and our workers will go out and do, there's only 3 LADOs for the city. So it's not a big team, it's a very small team, but we work with others to deliver, and we deliver some of that training. But the education advisors understand and know the process, and they do deliver training. So, and it's just identifying them schools and then doing some of that work. As a whole service, yeah.
Thank you. Councillor Maroof.
Thank you, Chair. It's a very interesting acronym, this, isn't it, LADO? It sounds very... Anyway, that's beside the point. I mean, the areas that I'm certainly interested in is page 47, around the faith schools of all faiths in particular. As you probably know, there's lots of mosque schools around and things like that. And when I was previously on this committee, we did raise this as an issue, because a lot of people who actually attend these go to school at 7 o'clock in the morning, and they're still active at 7 o'clock at night, which is a very long day for any child. And I've been through it, so believe me, it is a long time. The question from me is, are they engaging? I know what you're saying in here. Is the engagement through some proactiveness from not just that faith area, any faith area? The proactiveness coming from us, or is the proactiveness coming from them? What sanctions do we have in terms of, if any, probably none? And this seems all very voluntary. Voluntary in the sense that people can choose to refer something, and if I've got it wrong, please tell me, but I'm just trying to unpick this. People can choose to refer to a LADO, or they can choose not to. Am I right in understanding that?
In some senses, yes, and in other senses, no, is what I would say. So for so if we talk about the madrasas and other faith sectors, I would say we are proactive in going out, because actually if they don't know where they can't refer. But we also do training with them about what's appropriate to refer, what's not appropriate to refer. Some are more engaging than others. So we did, for a period of time, on like a contractual basis, we employed somebody to be a bit of a conduit between us and the madrasas, but they've now retired. I think it's quite a hard one, because actually you don't know what's out there until you know what's out there. Yeah, so what sanctions do we have? Well, we don't really have any sanctions, but actually if we know there's something that is happening, then like any other safeguarding matter, that's a matter that we would work jointly with the police on. And if we have concerns, so if we had a lot of referrals regarding an organisation, because what we have to remember is when somebody's referring to LADO, they are referring individuals, not organisations. But what we tend to do is that we do have a list where if we get a number of concerns about an organisation, and we'll reach out and do some of that work with that organisation. So we don't, really it's the employer that should contact us, but that doesn't mean that we don't get other referrals through. And we all sit on the same floor as the hub, so when things are coming in to our front door, if that involves an employer, they will notify us of that anyway.
Councillor Ruth, can I just sort of add to that? So this is why this report is so important, and LADO is a peculiar name, but there is one in every local authority area, so it is a statutory duty that the local authority has a local area designated officer who has that responsibility for when something involving children takes place within organisations, that it is brought through. It is really difficult because we've already talked about our statutory partners not necessarily using the LADO, and if you possibly remember in the history of Sheffield City Council, the previous inspections, the LADO role was seen as being an area for real development. Huge amount of work has taken place, and I would say it's one of the stronger LADO teams in the country, but actually in our civic role, we all need to be making sure that the organisations we're in contact with are aware of this, and that where there is a concern about an interaction between an employer and a child, that needs to be raised through to the LADO. And, you know, we all need to be challenging that the whole time, but you know, it is reliant on people knowing, and the further you get away, so that small boxing club, that small voluntary group, do they know that this is the role they should do through their safeguarding training? But we need to keep on reminding people.
Councillor Bashra.
I think you've probably answered my question, because how I understand, it's the first time I'm hearing the term LADO. I was just getting some clarification, you know, with like we already have the system in place safeguarding any inappropriate behaviour or whatever towards a child. we know through the trainings, any organisation, you know, what the steps are. So how is this different? Is this something new that was developed, or was it there? But what's the difference?
There is no difference. So I'm presuming that you're talking about somebody within an organisation. That is the process that they would have to refer that through as an employer. This is not new. Yeah, this is not new. We have to do this report every year. But this isn't something that's new. No, this is the process. If it's safeguarding regarding a child in general, there are general processes that you have to refer through to the hub, and that will be dealt with as a safeguarding matter. But as an employer, there's a separate duty that you also have to refer any concerns you've got about your employee working with children.
I should imagine as part of the training, depending on where you are in organisation, everyone should be doing safeguarding training. However, if you've got a safeguarding lead, they would know more about the LADO process. That would be the safeguarding lead within that organisation that would then escalate anything from their own organisation or anything. Is that right?
I suppose I'd add to that as well. So this would be a confidential nature as well in that sense. So all of these issues are sensitive until they become something which is in a different domain. So, you know, we work really hard because it is, and, you know, we've got to operate on that fact that we've got to look at it. We support the organisation with their investigation and their understanding. But if it were any of us, we would want an element of confidentiality around that as well.
Thank you. Councillor Mallington.
Thank you, and thank you for the report. Just a bit of background on myself. I was, until very recently, a trade union officer, regularly dealt with, supported members who were under investigation, often up to LADO, that sort of issue. I understand the service very well, understand how vital it is. The importance of all schools, I imagine all school employees should know about the LADO, or at least have heard of it on their safeguarding training. All employers should be having safeguarding training, I'm sure they do. However, from what you're articulating in your report, you know, you are working in spite of the system. You're doing a great job, a very creative job to try and reach all these employers. If we had a single employer, then it would be a lot easier. You know, it's another symptom of how the academised system has really split up the education system into a bunch of competing employers, which no one has any great control over. They're all trying to do their best. They all should have these things in place. You have to go around and try and make sure they do. We should know they do, if you see what I mean. Obviously, you know, it's important that they all have clear safeguarding policies and are following them, and I'm sure you're doing your best to find that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Mallington. Councillor Atkinson.
Hi. So you're saying that a lot of schools aren't engaging, or they might not know so much about the LADO process, but so there's a safeguarding lead, yeah, in each school, and they should, in theory, know. Is it something that Ofsted picks up on? I would have thought that it was something that would affect their Ofsted rating, for example. Or there'd be, you know, so I'm just quite surprised that do you know what I mean? And if an Ofsted inspector comes into a school and says, well, how come there's no referrals? You know, how does that process work? And is the burden of responsibility on sort of us, you know, on the LADO, you know, lead who's responsible, or is it Ofsted? And you know, how does that work? I'm just a little bit unclear on that.
Meredith.
I'm trigger happy with my pressing the button today. No, it's not you, it's me. You should be apologising, not you. So I think it's a really complex, that's a really complex question, which has a whole range of different layers to it. So safeguarding is absolutely looked at by Ofsted. And there are certain things such as having a single centre of reporting, which they would absolutely be an issue if there wasn't a single centre for HR reports, and that the DBS checks that should be undertaken. I think the referral to a LADO is more complex and more opaque, and is in that sense a judgment of an employer. And so I don't think that that would link into an Ofsted. I think it is a concern for us, because for us it's a threshold of, is there an understanding of actually it shouldn't be a level, you shouldn't be making a judgment, you should be making that referral through so there is consistency. And it's the same argument with the police. The police have their internal processes that they deal with, but nationally they're not strong on putting through to the LADO. So there are challenges within this system. I think there's obviously a new bill going through Parliament. I think all of those things will strengthen some of the conversations around safeguarding, and I think again that link through to Ofsted and what they're looking at, and to a certain extent they're looking at so many things, aren't they? I think it's a question, but for us it's how we link back to Learn Sheffield, link back to the dedicated safeguarding leads within schools, and making sure that there is that raising of awareness, and that we're doing that with individual schools and academy trusts if it's academy trusts that aren't putting through. So there's kind of both, but not, if that makes sense.
Councillor Moore, if you want to come back.
No, thank you, Chair. I was just going to come back on what Meredith said earlier, and having been on this committee for a number of years, I think quite a lot of people are fairly new on this one as well. We have made quite a lot of progress. I just wanted to make that clear, that on this particular issue, we were at developmental stage before. We're far from that now, and I think that we've got to be. It's a good story, to be honest, that we have made this progress. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Maroof. Councillor Hussain.
Thank you, Chair. My question is regarding Tier 3. If the individual met the Tier 3, I believe they are under investigation. Do they still continue to do their job? Are they suspended from the job?
So we're not the employer, so that is down to an employer. However, if we would offer advice, but it is the employer, it is up to the employer to make that decision. But what tends to happen is we have a meeting and we might say, actually, we might be satisfied if the employer then says they have other duties, or they are suspended from work during while the investigation is taking place. So there are a number of things. They might have other duties that mean that they don't work with children. There are a number of things that you can put into place. If we are not happy with that process, we will meet with them again and go through that process. And ultimately, it's a bit like if you have concerns, you have to report that then to somebody's DBS to make sure that it's on that, and that's for the employer. If they don't do that, we would then go back and do that as a safeguarding measure.
Meredith.
I'd just like to give assurance as well that they are like Rottweilers with this. So I know from the work that's taken place, they certainly are not shrinking violets in holding us to account for what's happening and putting forward a view, albeit as an organisation, you make your decisions and go through your HR process.
Thank you. Any more questions? Oh, Councillor Mallington.
Just coming back on that, from my experience, the serious safeguarding allegations, people are always suspended from their school employer or academy employer. The difficulty is if it goes to a police investigation, that puts the employer in a very difficult position, because they can't pursue their investigation internally until the police conclude, and that can take years. And so there can be quite a lot of difficulties around that, but that's sort of not the LADO's problem, really.
Thank you, Councillor Mallington. So are we all happy with this report and note this report? Thank you. Amanda, if you'd like to go on to the IRO annual report, thank you.
Yep, so all got the report. I mean, just things to be cited on that is we've got a full IRO service. I think we've currently got one vacancy. They hold a caseload at the minute of around 65. There are national standards for independent reviewing officers. And I think we're within that standard. So the caseload is within what is the required standard nationally, the recommendation. Children in care, so there's a higher proportion of boys that are in care, which is 57%. We know that we've had a slight increase in children that are currently looked after, and that's a lot of that is around we've had a higher number of unaccompanied asylum seeker children. We know that placement stability, that remains consistent. Last year it were at 72%. There's been a minor rise in children being placed within 20 miles of home, and we know that's about placement and placement sufficiency, but it's still lower than our neighbouring regions, is what we would say. As we have a clear objective really of keeping children in Sheffield and within their own communities. And yeah, we probably do better than our counterparts at that. Timely reviews, we've increased from 91% to 98%. Decisions being made within 5 working days has also increased. We're up to from 76 to 79%. There's been an increase in attendance at conferences by professionals that need to be there from 89 to 91%. So we know that the IROs, we did have a lull. There was more visiting online. What we know is we've got IROs now doing face-to-face. We're back to face-to-face conferences for all reviews and face-to-face conferences, and more going out and visiting children and documenting the visits in a required time frame. We know that we're back up to par with that. We've got currently 79% of children participate in their reviews, with a remaining 21% abstaining due to age or a lack of interest. We do have advocacy for children. Advocacy concerns raised by young people, including rights awareness, entitlements, and ensuring their voices are heard. In terms of the quality assurance, children looked after receive the most compliments, so we have a service where the independent reviewing officer reviews the case, looks at making sure that that plan is right for that child, making sure that there's no drift, there's no delay, and they will put a challenge on that. But also, they also do compliments within that. So all the challenges and compliments, they've increased. We'd expect that to happen to make sure, and that tells us that actually they are scrutinising whether that plan is right for that child and whether everything is on that child's records. Yeah, so they are challenging, is what we would say, and we've also got a reciprocal scrutiny. So if something is not, if the workers aren't happy with how the independent reviewing officers are doing their duties and how they're performing, it's a two-way process. I'm just thinking if there's anything else that you want me to raise with it. These are reviewed, they come regularly every month, as all the services do, to the Director's Performance Clinic. Yeah.
Thank you, Amanda. I will bring everyone in, but I'll just use my position as chair to make a comment and ask a question, if that's okay. So my comment is, for anyone who's not aware, the rights, entitlements and voice of the child is also a priority of the Community Parenting Board, which we look at on a regular basis on that as well. And also there is reverse scrutiny on that area as well by our Voice and Influence team. So it is really well scrutinised, I feel, and that, you know, everyone who's involved, including community parents and staff and everyone, is kind of being held to account on that. So I'm really reassured that that is being addressed from different avenues. I have got a question on page 76 regarding unaccompanied asylum seeker children, and I'm not quite clear on what. So we had 94 unaccompanied asylum seeker people captured in the collection window, but 45 of those lost their unaccompanied asylum seeker children status at some point during the window. Can we explain that? Is that because of age or? Oh.
It could be because of age. It could also be that they're no longer, they've got their status, so they then become refugees. Yeah.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments on this report, please? Councillor Mallington.
It's just a sort of slight quibble, really. It's got a lot of really useful and interesting information in it. It's just that some of the graphics are really unreadable, in particular page 78 and page 79. Just a quick appeal to maybe do proofreading better.
Well spotted, Councillor Mallington.
Councillor Mallington,
just
we'll
the
get
reasons
that
for leaving care, it's over. Yeah, we'll get that sorted out. Thank you.
Thank you. There might be a few others if you could look through it. Yeah.
Thank you for that. We'll make sure that that's looked at. Thank you. Okay, so the next report that we're going to be looking at is the annual fostering report, and I think Izzy's not well today, so Becky's come along to speak on this one. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Becky Toll, Assistant Director in Children's Social Care, and I'm here for fostering. I think I would say echo what Dawn said around the IRO report, really, that this is under a lot of scrutiny anyway, so we present a lot of this at the Community Parenting Board, which you'll all be aware of. I suppose the sort of highlights for me are around one, recruitment of foster carers, but also the continued support that we give to foster carers, and they're two of the sort of priorities. We obviously want children to be in foster care. I suppose for this report, the data is slightly out of date because of the time scale. So actually, this sort of, since the report's been written, we've recruited 19 mainstream foster carers. We've got 90 connected persons. And we've got 10 supported lodgings, so actually we're doing quite well, really, compared to sort of other regions, and we continue to offer support to foster carers. It's really important that we have choice when we're looking at placements for children, so that we can try and match children on lots and lots of areas, sort of culturally. As well as for the right age for carers, etc., etc. But I'm happy to go straight to questions if that's okay.
Thank you, Becky. If you've got any questions, I feel like we've discussed this quite a lot recently, with transformation work that we are doing in this area. Does anyone have any questions or comments on this one, or are we happy to note this report? Okay, thank you, Becky. We're happy to note this report. So the next report is One Adoption from South Yorkshire, and I know that they can't get here today. Have you got any updates or comments on this?
No, not really. I think that the report is what it is. It's a regional adoption agency that we have to be part of, and we're quite proactive in terms of our involvement with that. So again, if there are any questions.
Thank you. Just for everyone's information as well, I do meet with One Adoption South Yorkshire as lead member for Children's, and this paper did come to the Community Parenting Board this month. So are we all happy? Have any questions or comments on this which we can feed back to One Adoption South Yorkshire, because they're not here, and then we can note them and send them back? Councillor Mallington, have you got a question?
It's another sort of quibble. The last page of the report, let me just find it. It's Appendix 5, page 168. there's a graph which is straight across the text. So 3 of the recommendations of that sort of report within the report are unreadable.
I'll feed that back.
Yeah, I'm not sure actually in their report that's like that. I think it's how we might have published the report, because I've seen it with not like that.
It doesn't read like that on my screen, but I can take that back.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Mallinson. Are we happy to know this report? Thank you very much. Thank you, everyone. Okay, so the next item on the agenda is agenda item number 9, which is discretionary special educational needs travel and transport provision. And officers presenting today are Mark Shake and Paul Johnson. If you'd like to get your name, things, thank you. This is on page 173, thanks.
Good morning, Councillor Dale. So, my name is Mark Shake. I'm Head of Service responsible for resourcing across Children's Services.
Yeah, Paul Johnson. I'm Service Manager in Early Years Education and Skills.
So I feel like we have had several briefings with members, so what I will do is I will do a very quick overview of the paper and leave more time to answer any questions. I think it's important to just frame this discussion around what our vision is for this service. And I think it's explicitly written in the paper as every child and young person in Sheffield will travel to their place of learning as independently as possible, arriving safely, settled and ready to learn. So there are 4 elements within the vision: independence, safety, settled and ready to learn. And I think when we look at the paper today, I think that's more pertinent in terms of the post-16 children, that they are traveling independently and we are doing everything as a local authority to help them move towards preparation for adulthood. On page 5 or page 177 of the pack, there is a windscreen model which explains the vision in terms of what it means in reality. So on the right-hand side of the windscreen model, there are children who require individual taxi, and on the left-hand side, there are children who are actually making active travel choices. And what we want to achieve is, through support, working with individual families, working with schools and Senkos, encourage and help children move towards the left-hand side of the windscreen model. The discussion around travel support cannot be framed without looking at where the demand is coming from. And nationally, there is a rise in EHCP, and I think Sheffield is no different. We have got more children with EHCP, and that is having an impact on the number of children having to require travel support. Again, within the report, there are several graphs which capture the level of financial risk as well as the overspend related to that rising demand. In September, we reviewed some of the options for pre-16 children, and the committee agreed to adopt personal travel budget as an option for pre-16 children. So this paper specifically looks at what's happening with discretionary element of travel support. And there are 3 cohorts of children within that discretionary element. The first one is nursery SEND children. We've got 11 children currently who we are providing travel support to. And our proposal is that we continue with that arrangement. We are not suggesting any change to that until those children transition into primary school. The second biggest cohort within that area is post-16 children. 550 children are currently being supported through that group. And what we are suggesting is that we adopt personal travel budget as the preferred choice for the local authority to provide travel support. Now, within that, not every child would be able to use personal travel budget, and the policy would allow us to consider individual circumstances and, wherever possible, provide the appropriate level of support. However, we do expect that 80% of the children will move across to personal travel budget on post-16. And the last group is post-19, where we've got about 140 children currently being supported. Again, we want to introduce personal travel budget as an option for that group of people. And again, we will be looking at individual child, their circumstances, and make those decisions based on their personal need. The next step in the process is we have to enter into a process of statutory consultation. So following today's meeting, and in early January, we will launch a formal consultation for a 4-week period, conclude sometime in middle of February, and bring back an update for the committee to consider at its meeting on April. Thank you, Councillor.
Thank you, Mark. Have we got any questions or comments on this paper from anyone? Councillor Bannister.
Yeah, I just think that what we're trying to do is a very positive thing. It's an essential part of education that we teach children life skills, especially with the sort of SEN, and offering that support to both the schools and to the parents is just, yeah, very positive. I just think that we need to be very clear about what we do, why we're doing it, and more importantly, that nobody's going to lose their other transport if it's still necessary. And just to be, yeah, very open and positive about the whole thing.
Thank you, Councillor Bannister. Councillor Maroof.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Mark, for that report. I think this it's deja vu. I've heard this report that many times now that I think I could probably read it or regurgitate it myself. But yeah, it's a difficult one, really, isn't it? This one, and all I'd like to say is that having heard about it on, as I say, numerous occasions before, that the consultation that we do go through, as you've said, will come back to the next committee, and then we really need to take note of what the consultation brings out, because some of the people that we're trying to support here are going to be people who we don't want them not to be going to school or going to further education and things like that. And we really need to be supporting them through it. So some of them would be quite challenging areas. But yeah, I mean, the only other issue I have, and I've discussed this with you before as well, is that I wouldn't call it assumptions, because that gives it sort of a very low-key thing in terms of describing it. But the actual, and using the word savings is wrong as well, but what the benefits will be coming out of this may well be something that might challenge us in the future anyway, because following the consultation, we might not be able to produce that sort of difference in financial numbers. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Maroof. Councillor Mallington.
Councillor Bashra had a hand up first, actually.
Councillor Bashra.
Yeah, just a question. You mentioned, by the way, obviously this is really good, where we are at and the in-depth work that you're doing. Just a question regarding the consultation. Is that online or to make it effective? And this is something that I always feel a little bit where we need to be mindful in terms of when we're doing the consultation, making sure it actually reaches far and wide to hear those voices, so that when it does come to the board or wherever, you have that, so not just online.
So you're right. I think we're mindful of the impact of reaching out, and I think because we know the cohort, so we know 550 children, we know 140, so we will be specifically writing to those young people as well as their families. We will be reaching out through schools as well, and I think we're still drafting how the consultation process will happen. We will launch it sometimes around 9th or 10th of January. So there's a lot more work to be done between now and then to establish, which your comments around making sure that the right people, the right stakeholders are involved is a valid concern.
I could just add to that. When we're talking about existing users of travel support and transport, we'll be targeting not just current post-16 and beyond, so that's 16 to 25, but also those that are currently in year 10 and year 11, because that's informing parents of current year 11s about what the process will be if this does go ahead from September 25. So we'll cover key stage 4.
Thank you, Paul. Councillor Mallington.
Yeah, just welcome all the hard work that's been going on this. In some ways we're doing it for the wrong reason, or we're pushed into it for the wrong reason, because it is actually a really brilliant idea. You know, we're pushed into it because of the budget issue. However, it's really, really important that young people don't fall off a cliff in their childhood, that there is a ramp off in terms of enabling them to find new ways of travelling, and their families to find them new ways of travelling. So this is putting that power into the hands of the families. I really appreciate the element of travel training that's being included and offered to, and I hope that is obviously widely offered to these families to encourage them not just to take their kids to school in the car if the child is, or the young person is capable of being more independent. So it's providing that ramp off into adulthood, which is essential. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark.
You're right. I think travel training is definitely an area where when we looked at the pre-16, we increased the capacity we've got within the service to be able to reach out to more. And I think what we do plan to do is even expand it even further to make sure that option is available for more children. And you're right. This is all about independence, making sure that we're delivering better outcomes for the young people and preparing them for adulthood. So totally agree with that.
Can I just add to that briefly? We do have independent travel trainers now, but it's entirely dependent on parents' consent. And I think we find that sometimes parents are often more anxious than their children about this, and being able to let go and feel that the comfort of having a vehicle arriving at 7:45 in the morning and taking them to school is safe. This kind of pushes it for post-16 a little more, because we're not enabling, we're almost disabling post-16 young people who are going to be adults and members of society. One example, very briefly, that Sheffield College gave to me was I think it was a 17-year-old whose afternoon lesson was cancelled, and they made arrangements to get transport for him to go home. By the time those arrangements were made, he'd gone home on the train. So we're paying for an individual taxi for that young man there and back each day, and he's perfectly capable, but because there hadn't been a referral or there hadn't been consent, he's not been empowered to actually take that skill forward into his life. So that's very much the kind of thinking behind a lot of this. Thank you.
Thank you. Someone's trying to get in. Oh, sorry. Just on this, I think this is something, I mean, I've been Councillor Roof around in Children's Directorate for a number of years now, and this is something that we've been trying to do and trying to push for to improve independence, so we've not got that cliff edge, as Councillor Mallinson said, when young people sort of get to 25 and then, you know, parents may be working and, you know, then they don't really know what they're able to do with their young people, because what we've not ever really been able to manage is to be able to create that more holistic view of independence. So while we've just talked about the, you know, independent preparation for adulthood and into independence, which is cross-directorate, this has always felt like a separate piece of work, but this feels like part of that holistic view of life skills for our children and young people. So while we're trying to create other life skills, this is one life skill which would really truly enable our young people to become independent adults where appropriate. And like we've said, this will be done, which is in a different way, which we've probably not done before, as an annual review for our young people as they start to get older and develop new skills and become more confident, that we can have that conversation with families to ensure that everyone feels confident and safe in order for us to be able to do this. I think the way that this has been done over the last 18 months, 2 years, the work that we've done and the officers have done has been the step change that we've really needed. And I think just commend everyone really for getting us to this point, because I think there's been no stone unturned on this, and we've been very, very mindful of the people that this is going to impact on as well. So it is about ensuring that we bring people with us and that we listen. So there will be opportunities again. Thank you all members for being briefed again, but I think this is really important for us as elected members to truly understand what this is and the impact and the benefit that it's going to have on our young citizens of Sheffield moving forward. So I'd just like to say thank you for the report really, and I'm looking forward to seeing the benefits in years to come for our young people and how they're going to benefit from this. So thank you for that. So on this report then, there is a recommendation which I will just find because I've lost it. Bear with me. So the recommendation is to consider and give approval for consultation on the proposals for discretionary special educational needs travel support as set out in the paper, and to consider and give approval for consultation on the proposal for nursery SEN, post-16 SEN and post-19 SEN travel support as part of this paper. Are we all in agreement on this one? Yes, all agreed. Thank you very much. We look forward to seeing you in April and listening from parents in February, January, February. Thank you. So we're now on to agenda item number 10, which is on page 209, which is our DCS update report. Meredith.
So this is the, I've taken the opportunity to circulate the feedback letter from Ofsted based on the focus visit that we had in October. Hopefully you will see it's a really strong read. There's real positives within there. There is a recommendation around some of our work around the refugee team, but that is something that we were already looking at and working on. It shows that we know ourselves well. It shows that there is really strong practice taking place across the service, that real focus on improving outcomes for children and young people, that approach that we have of a child-centred approach, which is really important, and making sure that we are doing the right thing and having a positive impact in an area which is really tough and really difficult. So I hope you had a really pleasant reading of my report.
Thank you, Meredith. Any questions or comments on this one? Thank you. I've just got a comment really. Oh, sorry. Did somebody put their hand up? Oh, Toby.
I was probably going to say what you're going to say, Dawn, just is congratulate the team, basically.
Thank you, Toby. I think, again, for myself, I would have the privilege of being at the feedback from the inspection, and it was inspiring, really, to have everyone in a room who does really work. Everyone does really work so hard, and the transformation work that is going on at the moment, and the improvements that are being made is really reflective in this report. And again, I'd just like to thank everyone who works really hard for our children in Sheffield. Thank you. Yeah.
So one of the things that happened in the feedback, so you have regular feedback on a regular basis throughout the focus visit. And I'm a bit long and old in the tooth and have been in these a number of times now. And it's the first time I've ever experienced where the inspectors purposefully called out one of the leaders and the work that they've done on ensuring that the transformation has continued, and it was really solid and secure. And that's Sally Williams, our Director of Children and Family. So I think it's really important that I also say that. That's obviously not in the letter, but was a really powerful moment to show what a strong leader we have in that space.
Yeah, and I agree with Ofsted's view on that as well. Thank you, everyone. So any more comments or questions on this item? No? So we've got item number 11, Step Up to Social Work Degree Programme Grant Offer, and it's Dorothy and Amanda coming forward. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. My name's Dorothy Smith, and I'm a Senior Manager in Children and Families. I'm here today to present a report to you about the Step Up to Social Work Fast Track Postgraduate Degree Programme. The Step Up to Social Work is a programme that supports individuals changing to or wishing to start a career in social work. The programme uses grant funding from the Department for Education to fund individuals so they can undertake a 14-month postgraduate degree in social work. The Step Up to Social Work Department for Education Fast Track Degree Programme started in 2010, and since then partnerships across the country continue to deliver the programme. The Yorkshire and Humberside Regional Partnership being one of those partnerships. The Yorkshire and Humber Regional Partnership consists of 9 local authorities, including Sheffield City Council, which is the lead authority for the partnership and the authority that administers external funding for and on behalf of the partnership. Following our successful application to the Department of Education, the partnership has been offered a grant of in excess of 1.8 million to fund this year's cohort, which is cohort 9, and the terms of funding are set out in a draft Department for Education grant agreement. I can actually say today that we've actually received the final grant agreement last week, so no longer in draft, and they have approved 50 places for students. This report updates the committee on progress with this programme and seeks approval for Sheffield City Council to continue as the accountable body for this new funding, which starts in January 2026, and accept the grant funding on behalf of the partnership. The report also seeks approval for Sheffield City Council as the lead authority for Yorkshire and Humber Regional Partnership to commission higher education services for and behalf of the partnership. I'd just like to point out that it's a very attractive programme. We get thousands of people applying. The Department for Education fund it, and they fund people to step out of their current employment by giving them almost a £22,000 tax-free bursary. The fees for university are fully paid, and the Department for Education give us up to £12,000 for each student towards payment of the university fees. We also gain administration costs and cost to procure a university provider as well. So it's a very lucrative initiative for us to continue. We've been the lead authority for the last 14 years. We're very successful. We're one of the largest partnerships in the country. So I'd like to seek today your approval to continue. The recruitment starts in February 2025 for students to start their programme in January 26 and then pass their degree by March 27. We're currently running a programme which is cohort 8, and we have 41 trainees at the moment on that programme, and they will graduate in March 2025. So it's a rolling programme. Thank you.
Thank you, Dorothy. Have we got any questions or comments on this report? No, so we'll move straight to the recommendation. Oh, sorry, Councillor
Just
Smith.
a question. Is it 1 year program or is it 3 years course, degree, whatever? Can you explain on that?
It's 14 months, it's very intensive, and therefore there is a rigorous assessment centre process. It's because it's a postgraduate degree course, you have to already have a degree. It can be in any subject whatsoever, but there's quite a lengthy assessment centre process. The recruitment's quite rigorous. This year, the Department for Education have allowed partnerships to drop the requirement for Maths GCSE. In previous years, that's been a real bone of contention because a lot of people who are really good candidates, you know, have got sort of years' experience in care, haven't been able to apply because they haven't got the Maths GCSE. We think that it's disadvantaged a lot of communities, and therefore, as a partnership, we've agreed that we will drop the requirement for Maths this time. So we're going to have hundreds of applications.
And is there any, job security, like apprenticeship after that degree? Is it just a degree and they can apply anywhere in the country?
Okay, so once they qualify and graduate after 14 months, they are qualified social workers and they can register with Social Work England and they can immediately apply to become a social worker. As a partnership, we guarantee interviews for all our trainees, and of course that's dependent on vacancies at the time. I can honestly say over the last 14 years, every single Step Up trainee has received or been awarded a social work job.
Thank you, that's excellent. Thank you.
Councillor Bashra.
I just want to really welcome this because I think working out in the community and difficulties in progressing or getting into certain fields, and I think what you just touched on, maths and English, has been a big barrier where many people have got the skills, expertise, experience, and that has been one of the reasons they couldn't step into these, and there is a great need as well. So well done on thinking around that and being able to achieve it. So
Thank you.
really pleased with that.
Thanks.
Thank you. Any more comments? No? Okay, so we'll move on to the recommendation. So it is recommended that this committee approves that Sheffield City Council continue as the accountable body and accepting on behalf of Yorkshire and Humberside Step Up to Social Work Regional Partnership grant funding of the excess of £1.8 million from the DFE for the Step Up to Social Work Programme Cohort 9, and approves that Sheffield City Council become the lead authority for the Yorkshire and Humberside Regional Partnership, and in that capacity commissioning higher education services to deliver the Step Up to Social Work Programme as detailed in the report. Do we all agree? Thank you. That's fine. Thank you very much. I'm going to propose that we... Perfect timing. That we now move on to agenda item number 12, which is the Q2 budget monitoring, and which is on page...
Shall I do a quick mince pie?
Yes, we're just going to have a couple of minutes, if you don't mind, while we let Jane get settled. And then, shall we just take a couple of minute break? Thank you. Thank you everyone for just taking a few minute comfort break. Thank you. So now we're on to agenda item number 12, which is on page 235, which is Q2 budget monitoring, and Jane will be presenting the report. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair, and apologies to the committee. You did whip through those last items rather quickly, so you didn't give me a chance to get here. So I'm here today to present the Q2 budget monitoring paper, which includes 6 months of the accounts up until the 30th of September and a 6-month forecast to the end of the year. The full report was taken to the Finance and Performance Committee on the 18th of November, so some of you may have heard this update already, but it is important for the committee to consider the full financial context when considering decisions that impact on committee budgets. The financial position of the Council is reporting a 34 million overspend against budget, which is approximately 7% of our net revenue budget. The position is driven by 3 main factors: funding reductions, increased demand and rising costs. We've experienced significant funding reductions across local government. Sheffield has received £858 less to spend per household in real terms when compared to 2010-11, which is a reduction of 26%, above the national average of 18% or £556 per dwelling. We've experienced increasing demand for our services, particularly from our most vulnerable citizens, and post-COVID we've faced significant levels of inflation which has impacted on our cost base. A 34 million overspend is substantial, and our officers are working diligently to develop solutions to reduce key areas of overspend. The position has remained stable from the Q1 outturn, but targeted work from finance with service colleagues over the last quarter has helped us understand the drivers of the cost challenges and develop collaborative action plans. We are forecasting to deliver 40 of the 42 million savings target, which is a 95% success rate. The main challenges remain for budgets in adult social care due to rising costs and demand for care, housing and finance and performance budgets due to the costs associated with tackling increased homelessness, and in education and children and families. So the Education, Children and Families Committee budgets are forecasting to overspend by 13.8 million against a net revenue budget of 136.3 million. The overspends are primarily due to persistent demand pressures, challenges in achieving planned savings, and the need for service reviews and efficiency measures. In terms of placements, the budget is balanced overall, with overspends in residential placements and underspends in family-based placements. Mitigations from the social care grant and budget allocations help balance that bottom line. The no recourse to public funds category is 1.4 million overspent due to increased demand, particularly in accommodation, which is approximately 0.9 million more than last year. Support for children with disabilities is also 1.4 million overspent, which is exacerbated by reduced income from the ICB. There is a 2 million overspend in integrated commissioning, which is a budget saving from 22-23,
a 1.1 million overspend in children's services due to 24-25 saving due to the undelivered partner income. So these overspends stem from a lack of clarity on funding arrangements from the ICB due to a variety of commissioning routes on the different continuing care packages that don't all route through the council, and further work is needed to clarify to ensure that council budgets are properly reimbursed by health partners. Home to school transport has a 6.5 million overspend, which reflects increased demand with over 1,000 more children needing transport compared to pre-pandemic levels, with another 103 placements since September this year. As discussed earlier, the SEN Transformation Programme has been addressing several key areas to manage demand and reduce costs. There is ongoing work to optimise the use of passenger assistance, optimise fleet and taxi journeys with transport teams, and push for the use of personal transport travel budgets to promote independence for children and families. The Council's key response to our financial challenges is the Future Sheffield programme, which is focused on transforming our services to create a more sustainable and efficient operating model. Transformation is essential to ensure we can continue delivering statutory services while supporting city growth. Our efforts align with the Council's broader strategic goals and have played a significant role in our budget setting process this year. Our medium-term financial strategy, published in July, identified a budget gap of 68.9 million over the next 4 years, with 31 falling next year. The autumn statement from government indicated a 3.2% real-term increase in core spending power for 25-26 and an announcement of plans to reform funding allocations starting with a targeted approach for 25-26, followed by a broader redistribution from 26-27. This should result in a clearer multi-year financial outlook, aiding in strategic planning and resource management. Services have worked hard to develop savings proposals to bridge next year's gap, and a full report was presented to the Finance and Performance Committee on the 16th of December with an update on the current position, which estimated the gap to be about 1.7 million. We expect to receive the full details of the finance settlement today, and we'll be working through that in January and present back to the S&R Committee in February ahead of full council and budget approval in March 25. The paper is to note the financial position at Q2. Happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Jane. Do we have any questions or comments on this budget paper? I feel like we've discussed this quite a lot as well over this year, haven't we, really, going through the budget process? No questions or comments on this paper? Okay, so the recommendation is that we note the updated information on the 24-25 revenue budget outturn as described in this report, including the detailed committee budget monitoring information and management actions provided. Do we all agree with that? Is that for noted? Thank you very much. Thanks, Jane, for that. That brings us to the end of our meeting. But if people don't mind, I would just like to thank all of the staff in this directorate who are going to be looking after our children over Christmas. They dedicate their time away from their own families quite often at this time of year, and I just would like to extend a heartfelt thank you from all of us, really, for spending their time with our children at Christmas. So thank you very much, everyone. Thanks. I've just been reminded I need to mention something about the reports that have got some technical issues on them can be added as an addendum after this meeting, so they'll be amended and added on afterwards. That's okay. Thank you very much. So we will see you all in the new year. Have a really nice Christmas, a good festive period, everyone, and thank you very much for coming. Thank you.